Welcome back to Enigmatic Echoes, where shadows carry stories and whispers echo across centuries. I'm your host, Jazz. Tonight, we're unraveling one of the oldest, most widespread terrors known to humankind, the nightmare. Now, most of us think of nightmare as a bad dream, but for centuries, the word meant something much darker. It wasn't the dream, it was the being, a creature that sat on your chest, suffocated you, and sometimes stole your soul. From the Scandinavian Mara to the Caribbean Kokma to the American Old Hag, the nightmare has stalked sleepers all over the world. And tonight, we're going to chase it through history, through the folklore, and right into your bedroom. So, are you ready? Let's begin. The word nightmare comes from Old English. Neat meaning night, and mare meaning a demon, hag, or oppressive spirit. Interestingly, mare doesn't mean horse, though many people assume so today. Instead, it's closer to a malicious being. In Old Norse sagas, the Mara was a soul that left a body, sometimes a witch, sometimes someone cursed, to torment sleepers. The Mara would slip into houses through the tiniest cracks, keyholes, knots in wood, even the eye of a needle. Once inside, she perched on your chest, pressing until you woke breathless and terrified. This belief is so ancient and left its mark on language. The German Albtraum, literally elf dream, the French cauchemar, from coucher, to press down, plus mare. In Iceland, the Mara appears in legal texts as early as the 13th century, treated as a real affliction. In Scandinavia, the Mara wasn't just an evil spirit. It could also be a living woman whose soul wandered during sleep. Some sagas describe a witch or even a jealous lover turning into a Mara at night to torment someone. Victims reported waking with scratches or bruises, evidence that the attack was more than a dream. Horses left in their stalls after a Mara's visit would be drenched in sweat, their manes tangled in impossible knots. In Sweden, people would leave iron knives near the bed to ward her off, or even sleep cross-armed, holding onto a Bible. And here's the frightening part. If you caught a Mara in the act and asked her name, she would be forced to reveal it. The next day, when you confronted the real woman, she would often bear the marks of her nightly wandering, a limp, a bruise, or a strange look in her eye. Germany gave up the Alp, a goblin-like figure. He wore a hat that gave him magical powers, and if he sat on your chest, you couldn't breathe. If you stole his hat, you could control him. The Alp wasn't always entirely evil, though. Some stories described him as mischievous, braiding horse manes, souring milk, tangling women's hair into elf locks, but his chest-sitting visits were never welcome. In Slavic countries, the nightmare blended with household spirits, like the Kikamara. She might spin thread by the fire or strangle you as you sleep. People left offerings of bread or milk to keep her appeased. In England and Ireland, people spoke of the night hag. She appeared as an old woman with sunken eyes, thin limbs, and long fingers. She pressed down on sleepers and sometimes whispered dreadful visions into their ears. In Ireland, a belief in the pressing spirit persisted well into the 19th century. Some said it was the ghost of the recently dead, returning to torment the living. Others thought it was a punishment for sins, or the mark of witchcraft. One chilling account from the 1600s describes a man waking to see a hag sitting on his chest. Her hair wild, her mouth dripping foam. When he prayed out loud, she shrieked and vanished. But for weeks afterwards, he felt as though she were still watching. The nightmare traveled across oceans, carried through slavery and migration. In the American South, enslaved Africans described being hag-ridden. Witches, they said, would ride the souls of the sleeping, leaving them paralyzed and drained. This became known as the Old Hag Syndrome. a name still used in Newfoundland, where the phenomenon is so well known that almost every family has a story of their own. In the Caribbean, on islands like St. Lucia, the nightmare is the Kokma, said to be the restless soul of an unbaptized child. The Kokma leaps onto the sleeper, choking them or riding their chest until dawn. Victims often woke with scratches around their necks. To protect themselves, families would scatter rice or sand around the bed because spirits were thought to be compelled to stop and count each grain. Sounds familiar? In Japan, the nightmare appears not as a hag but as a kanashibara. The word literally means bound in metal. People believed it was caused by ghosts or vengeful spirits pinning a sleeper in place. Even today, many Japanese describe their sleep paralysis as a haunting, not a medical condition. In China, sleep paralysis is sometimes called ghost oppression, a supernatural force pressing down on the sleeper. In Mongolia, it's described as a dark spirit stealing one's breath. This global spread is what makes the nightmare so fascinating. Different names, different faces, but always the same crushing weight. So how did people fight back? The remedies are as eerie as the spirit itself. In Iceland, you could carve protection runes into your doorframe. In Germany, turning your pillow upside down was said to break the Alps' hold. In the American South, sprinkling salt or placing a broom by the bed was common, forcing the hag to stop and count every straw. In St. Lucia, people tied red threads around their waists or their children's wrists to ward off the Kokma. And in some places, sleeping with iron scissors under the bed was considered protection. Different lands, same fear, that in the stillness of the night something could climb onto you and you would be helpless to stop it. Now, let me share some of the accounts passed down. One, a fisherman in Newfoundland, told of waking every night to find the old hag perched on his chest. He couldn't move, couldn't scream, but one night he bit down on his tongue until he bled, and the pain broke the spell. In Sweden, farmers swore they saw the Mara ride their horses, leaving them wild-eyed and frothing by morning. Some tied their horses' manes in elaborate braids to confuse her. And in modern times, ask around. You'll find someone, maybe in your own family, who has felt the same, a crushing weight, a shadow, the sensation that something or someone was there. Science tells us this is sleep paralysis. It happens when your mind wakes while your body is still locked in REM sleep. You can't move, can't cry out, and your chest feels heavy because your diaphragm is restricted. But here's the chilling part. Why do so many people across so many cultures describe it the same way? A hag, a demon, a child, a shadow in the corner. Maybe it's our brains making sense of terror, or maybe folklore has always known what science still can't explain. The nightmare inspires artists too. Johann Henrik Fossilis' painting, The Nightmare from 1781, shows a woman draped in sleep with a demon squatting on her chest and ghostly horse peering from the shadows. It became an icon of Gothic horror. Writers from Shakespeare to the Brothers Grimm mention the nightmare as a real being. Even modern horror films, from The Hauntings of Hill House to Mare of Easttown, echo the old belief that the night brings more than dreams. The nightmare, it seems, is part of our collective imagination, and maybe our collective memory. So, what do you think? Is a nightmare just a trick of the mind, a sleep disorder wrapped in fear? Or is it something more? A creature older than language, following us through history, culture, and time? Either way, tonight when you go to bed, you might pull your blanket a little tighter. Maybe you'll put your shoes upside down or leave a broom nearby. Because when you wake to the heavy weight on your chest, staring into the shadows at the foot of your bed, will you be able to tell yourself it's just a dream? Thank you for joining me tonight on Enigmatic Echoes. If you enjoyed this episode, or if it kept you awake, share with a friend. Follow us on Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud for more chilling folklore from across the world. And remember, the echo in the dark may not always be your imagination. Good night.